I took an overnight flight from San Francisco Airport. I couldn't wait to get home to Cleveland. I hadn't seen Jerry for over 10 days and arrived a day and a half earlier than planned. The project we are working on is yet another installation and development of a big data system. The project is currently in a quiet phase while the equipment is being installed and tested. It was a difficult 10 days. The damn client CEO thinks that all he has to do is write a check and snap his fingers, and it will be done the next day. He pays our company more to make things go faster, and I'm not supposed to complain, but I still do. I get a fixed salary and have to bring in billable hours, which means he basically manages my time. It feels like he owns my life. All this for the sake of career growth. I've been living with Jerry for the last year. It's his condominium, but we split the costs. It's cheaper than a good apartment for one. In addition, I get both a lover and, possibly, a future husband in one person. But this year was not the most successful for us. Our relationship has lost its former spark. Everything could be different, but we are both absorbed in work. Our work schedules are crazy, and I've spent more time traveling this year than in the previous 3 years since graduating. I still value Jerry, but I'm starting to realize that we're in a difficult situation. I am an independent woman, I know what I want. Or do I think I do? The taxi dropped me off at the house. The distance from the road to the steps is small, but it's a long walk to our apartment. Whoever invented rolling suitcases deserves heaven. If I start the laundry right now, I'll have time to prepare a surprise dinner for us. I rolled my suitcase to the laundry room, which is located in the back of the apartment. A special dinner, that's what awaits us. This unexpected visit home is worth it. I placed the suitcase on the table next to the laundry room. The bed linen was already ready for washing. Jerry never does his laundry. He can't cope with household chores at all. But something was wrong, not right at all. I took the sheets and didn't see any traces of dirt, but they smelled. Like someone else's perfume, not mine. And one more smell, the smell of another person. And, in Jerry's tracks, instant awareness. He was not alone in our bed. I would never have thought that Jerry was capable of this. Isn't that in his character? I have to leave here right now. I wasn't supposed to be home, and I won't be here. We need to think about everything. If I call Brother Dave, he'll come get me right away. Lucky chance, I can be outside in 15 minutes. Faster than calling a taxi. I dialed his number. Hey, Dave, can you pick me up at the condo right now? This is important. I heard an affirmative answer. Great, I'll wait for you at the entrance. Bye. I returned everything to its place as it was before my arrival and headed to the front door, rolling my suitcase back along the long corridor. When he pulled up to the house, I threw my suitcase in the back seat and got into the car. Just get out of here as quickly as possible. What happened, Sandy? Dave, I returned home a day and a half early and found bed linen next to the typewriter. It smelled like someone else's perfume. Not mine. Can I stay with you until I figure out what to do? My brother Dave also works in it. He is interested in hardware, firmware, and their interaction. When he's interested, he writes assembly language programs for fun. This is a machine code language. He has a successful business in the design, installation, and commissioning of specialized equipment operating via the internet and networks. I work in big data. We are geeks. We drove to his house for 10 minutes in complete silence. I needed this. Arriving at his entrance, he took out my suitcase, grabbed my left hand, and led me to the kitchen. It was about 11 a.m., and he was thinking about lunch, and I lost my appetite half an hour ago. He put out fresh coffee to invigorate and calm me down. Working 14 hours a day for weeks made me a coffee addict. When we came to our senses a little, he began to say, "Okay, you returned home and saw sheets with a smell of perfume by the washing machine. I'm not defending anyone, but we are analysts. What else could it be?" He paused, and then added with a stupid grin, "Or maybe he's a little. That." He moved his hand to the side. "Does he like to dress up?" Surely shock showed on my face, but he continued, "Maybe he's a hidden man-woman. I've met people like that." Now his tone became serious. Listen, now you definitely don't know anything. This is the main thing. It's up to you whether you stay with him if this turns out to be true. But now you can't be sure. I was depressed. It's normal to be angry and hurt, but making sense of the situation is my job. And now I have the most painful task ahead of me. We sat in silence until Dave spoke again. You still have that box with the raspberry pie that I collected for you. Is it in the bedroom? I nodded. Then wait here. He stood up, but continued, already leaving, and have at least something to eat before you do anything. He pushed everything for the sandwich towards me and left. For himself, Dave built a small video player on the Raspberry Pi. He bought modules from computer stores, including the Linux operating system, and programmed the device to do what he wanted, playing movies like a jukebox and connecting to the internet when needed. He ripped all his DVDs, converted them to Blu-ray format, and loaded them onto external hard drives. He has a whole library of more than 400 films, a third of which are for children. His TV, cable box, and Blu-ray player are connected to the system and controlled by one remote control. Last Christmas, he put together the same system for me, and we set it up in the bedroom to watch movies. I munched on a sandwich with capicola, ham, and soft Assyrian cheese on a piece of Roman bread. Food has always calmed me down. Dave returned with a small cube in his hand. I put together a few nanny cams for my Pi to keep an eye on nannies while they are babysitting. We didn't invite one girl, who was only 14 years old, anymore. She took vodka and added water. He held up a tiny cube, about an inch wide, with a thin wire and a connector at the end. All you need to do is connect it to the Pi and point the black side of the camera towards the bed. If I remember correctly, your dresser that the Pi sits on is a bit cluttered. No one will notice him. I nodded. My chest of drawers, unlike Jerry's, was always far from perfect order. I still have administrative rights to your router, server, and Pi. I'll do the rest myself. Dave, I never thought that I would spy on someone, and you make it so easy, I said. Suddenly, the realization of my words caused a storm of emotions in me. At first, I started crying quietly, and then I burst into tears out loud. My brother hugged me. It's all about trust, Dave, I said through tears. Trust in people, and losing him to Jerry hurts me. Our relationship has not been ideal for a long time. We both work crazy hours. We are just starting our careers and must work now to achieve success. We grew apart, and when I try to revive our relationship, I am again sent on a business trip to the other side of the country. But I have to know, it's a matter of trust. Without him, we will not be able to move on. And I'm not ready to move forward without him. I fell silent for a minute and quietly asked, when can we establish this? Finish your sandwich, and in 10 minutes, we will be at your house. Let's go back to 1 o'clock. Does he come home at? Around 6 in the evening. And I wasn't supposed to return until tomorrow. I'll also bring my work laptop. He doesn't even know where I keep it, so he won't notice. According to his plan, we were back at 1 o'clock. Dave took something out of the freezer and started defrosting it so he could grill it that night. I contacted work and, as expected, was tasked to return. Something important had broken and the client was nervous. I booked an overnight flight for the next morning at 5 a.m. That evening, Dave and his wife Terry hosted me for a wine and wine dinner. It was nice to spend time with them and play with my nieces. This was exactly the evening I needed. After the kids went to bed, I was able to process everything that was happening and discuss it with Dave and Terry. They asked difficult questions, listened to my answers, which sometimes started one way and ended with something completely different. But the worst part was that both parts of the answer were true. Dave drove me to the airport the next morning around 4 o'clock. He always supported me. Sandy, no matter what happens, you have to understand. You've invested 2 years in this relationship. You have been living together for a year. If it's all over, just get up, dust off your clothes, and find your new life. You deserve better. You deserve better. Now go and conquer this big data project. With these words, he hugged me, and I entered the airport, heading to the express check area. When I flew back to San Francisco, I sent Jerry a message saying that work required me to return and I would not be able to come for the weekend. I didn't answer his calls so he could leave me a voice message. At the end of the workday, I received an email from Dave. He wrote that I was right, Jerry was wrong. He sent links to his server, and I saw the video. It showed Jerry and Diana from his work doing it on our bed. It's only been a few hours since I sent him the message, and he's already going at it like there's no tomorrow. Blonde, blue-eyed, 5'9", thin to the point of barely being anorexic Diana. Now picture me, 5'2", brown eyes, 15 extra pounds, nothing special about my looks. Bimbo versus brains. Bimbo beat my 6'1" blonde with blue eyes. I replied to Dave's letter, thanking him for his help. I wrote that I didn't think there was enough investment in this relationship for me to want to save it. Last week, I was telling Dave and Terry about a job offer I just received in Oregon. Working with big data, more money, higher level of responsibility, and no travel fuss. My career was starting to move forward. Jerry, an accountant, was still sitting in his starting position 2 years later. Plus, it was the height of tax season, and he had to work overtime to prepare for audits. I spent the next 2 weeks getting this job. There were 5 interviews. First, a 30-minute phone interview with HR, then an hour with the potential boss. After this, 3 personal interviews with the boss, with the working group, and the final one with the general director. I conducted all face-to-face meetings in 24 hours over 2 days, which I specially planned for the trip. From the very beginning, the job seemed right for me, and I was offered an offer that day. I still had 15 hours left in Portland and decided to find myself an apartment to rent. It was a lucky coincidence that housing just became available in a trendy area near the office. I signed the contract and immediately forwarded all my mail to the new address. I asked my brother to gather packing materials and organize friends for a quick move. One day, contrary to common sense, I looked at a file on my brother's server from the Diana and Jerry show. This disgusted me, but at the same time, it made it easier to decide to leave. I still didn't know how to tell him I was leaving, but I thought running away in the middle of the night was one of the best options. I had some work to complete and needed 2 more weeks, so I told Jerry I would stay at the client's site until it was completed. He seemed sad, sleeping with a blonde on the side, and he's also sad. The last 2 weeks while I was gone had been particularly stressful for Jerry, with tax filing season underway and him working late every night. In addition, he was unexpectedly sent to audit in Columbus for a couple of days. I didn't care anymore. I should have moved on and distanced myself from him emotionally. One day, Dave called me. "Sandy, you have to see this. You just have to." "Go to the webcam," he said and hung up. I opened my personal laptop and saw Diana with her new partner. Jerry was away. He sent me a message yesterday. He was in Columbus, a few hours away, and Diana was here with some Don. I received a message from my brother on my phone. Don is her boss. Listen. Obviously, this was not their first time. It seems that Diana not only had a regular job in the office, but also an additional one with Don, a boss 2 levels higher. Gradually, I began to understand that all this concerns not only Jerry. I called my brother, and we talked about it. He monitored their sessions. I don't understand why. Cheap entertainment, perhaps. Dave, why should I care? You know it's over for me. He just doesn't know about it yet. Well, let her sleep with a few more men. What difference does it make to me now? Sandy, you're not that shallow. I know you and love you as only a brother can love a sister. Look at yesterday's post. It's short. You'll see something. I went to Dave's server and quickly found the file I needed. If this were a regular user, the file would have a descriptive name. But for us techies, the name was in the format yi_dd_hh_ss. Nothing creative, but clear and convenient. It was quite a small file compared to the others. I opened it and began to wait. Here Jerry and Diana enter the bedroom. He didn't look very happy. She playfully pinched his butt. After a few minutes of chatting, she began to undress Jerry. Why should I watch this? Why don't I just turn it off? I'm getting angrier at my brother every second. Why watch? Because my brother asked, and I trust him. Damn him. Why should I go through the pain again? I was waiting. Jerry is not in the mood, not at all in the mood, and so she starts talking about me. The kind of language she has is simply terrifying. She not only sleeps with my boyfriend in our bed, but also humiliates me as much as she can. This little one, and this bastard is spewing. Wait a minute. Jerry pushed her hands away. Jerry yelled at her sharply. He told her to her face and directly that she had no right to say such things, that they both have problems. He didn't let her get a word in, continuing his tirade for several minutes. I saw her face change, first confidence and control, then sadness, then a flicker of anger. Finally, he said that was all for today and that she had better leave. As Jerry turned to leave the bedroom, I noticed Diana wince in anger behind him. Then she gave him a double fuck gesture with both hands. Very mature, isn't it? As they were leaving, I heard Diana apologize to Jerry for her words to me. This is class. I knew that Jerry had more problems with Diana than he realized. Anyway, I'm leaving. The next day, Dave sent me another letter. This time, someone new ended up in Jerry's bed while he was in Columbus. I opened the file and saw his colleague Jason. I always knew that Don was a lecher, and I tried to stay away from him. His hands always, accidentally, touched women. But Jason, he was a pleasant person, not a rude person. Jason was married, and he and Loretta were trying to have a child. We were friends with them. Things only got worse. Both men are married. Dawn has 2 children. I feel sorry for their wives, and I feel sorry for myself. I didn't mourn the loss of that relationship, and this pain from 2 married men spreads further and further. I have to do something. Next Friday was finally going to be X day for Jerry and me. I agreed to meet him in a nice restaurant right after his work. It was close to his office, so there was no reason to stop by home. Officially, I was supposed to arrive by plane right before the meeting. This would be my farewell dinner, but Jerry didn't know about it yet. By that time, exactly a month had passed since I had been home. It's over. His infidelities are dedication to careers more than relationships. None of this makes sense. On Thursday morning, Dave met me at the airport. My plan was to stay with Dave and Terry until Friday morning and then head to the hotel before my flight on Saturday morning. Jerry could have tried to find me at Dave's, but I didn't want to let that happen. I also booked a connecting flight from Cleveland to Denver to Portland rather than a direct flight. He won't know where I am. I don't want Jerry to even try to see me. On the way to Dave's house, we discussed my flight and Portland, but not Jerry and my departure. I can't wait to see my nieces. I know they are only 3 and a year old, but they are so sweet, especially the older one who calls me Aunt Sandy. Sandy, their eyes light up when you arrive. You understand that with your new job, you won't be able to take a vacation for a long time. Being with family is wonderful, no matter what. I knew that being with them was very important to me now. The past month, full of Jerry's infidelities, has been too hard for me. This is already too much. Dave arranged for some friends to help me get ready on Friday morning while Jerry was at work. We expected to get there as soon as he left at 7 a.m. and be done by 11. Jerry was usually home in the afternoon. Dave tracked his location through his phone, so we knew if he was back early. If this happens, there will be no farewell dinner. On Friday morning, 4 of Dave's friends gathered. They all took the morning off to help. They listened to instructions and understood when I needed to stop for a while to cope with my emotions. We managed. We came in at 8 and left at 10:30. Back at Dave's house, Terry helped me unpack and pack what I wanted to send. She kept me busy, but gave me time to process my feelings. I never liked pretending. This is probably why I once fell in love with Jerry. With him, I could be myself. I thought he was sincere with me, too. Now I'm going to meet him in a restaurant and pretend. I want to hit him on the head. I want to scream. I want to cry. But none of this will happen. I know I won't have complete closure from this situation, but disappearing into Portland is the best option. A little revenge is a romantic dinner, at which he will find an empty apartment. I monitored my flight to make sure everything was going according to plan. I supposedly had to arrive at 16 o'clock and could be at the restaurant by 16:45. I entered the restaurant with a suitcase at 17 o'clock. Jerry was already sitting at the bar. He ran up to me and hugged me tightly. From that moment, my game began. I hate pretending. A month has passed since we saw each other. Jerry was genuinely happy to see me, but a little nervous. We talked about work, about travel, nothing important. This idiot looked at me as if he wanted to admit to cheating, but I immediately moved the conversation to another topic when I noticed it. I wasn't going to give him a chance. We moved away from each other. He cheated, it's all over. Dot. After Jerry paid the bill, Dave and Terry happened to walk into the restaurant and greet me. We started talking, isolating Jerry. I glanced at him and said that I wanted to have a drink with them, and they would take me to the apartment after. He was unhappy, but agreed. I kissed him on the cheek, said goodbye, and he left. Once he was out of sight, we left too, and Dave and Terry took me to a hotel near the airport. I didn't want Jerry to be able to contact me anymore. I left a note on the kitchen table in the apartment. Dear Jerry, I'm sorry, but it didn't work out for us. I was faithful to you, but unfortunately, you were not faithful to me. I hope you and Diana will be happy together. I accepted a new position on the West Coast and took everything that belonged to me. It will be better this way. Goodbye, Sandra. A couple of days later, as I was settling into Portland, I got a call from Dave. Sandy, it's all gone. Well, just listen. On Saturday, Jerry and Diana walked into the bedroom. She had already taken off her blouse and was trying to persuade Jerry to lie with her. And suddenly the TV turned on, and on the screen they saw themselves live. Soft, romantic music played in the background. Cool move, right? Both were dumbfounded. Then your recorded voice sounded, I'm leaving without much anger or resentment. Sorry, Jerry, that you were unreliable. I'm sure you understand what it's like. I think you should watch these recordings to the end. Diana looked scared and tried to turn off the TV, but the remote control didn't work. A little trick, I covered the battery with a piece of paper. The first recording showed them in full swing. Diana then insults you by saying that she is all his and can't wait for your relationship to end. Then he saw Diana with her boss, Dawn, on different dates, with date and time stamps, and then the footage of her and Jason. I heard her gasp again as a photo of Jason's wife, Loretta, appeared on the screen. Then I showed a picture of Dan with his wife, June, and their 2 children under 9. Jerry froze. Diana was in a panic. Then your recorded voice spoke again. Yes, both of their wives saw those scenes with Diana. In fact, they both watched it live and used the recordings the last few weeks while I was in California. I left you these videos. I hope you and Diana can work things out. Oh yeah, you'll need to get tested. Both wives have already passed. You do understand that symptoms may not appear immediately, right? So Jerry, now do you understand what trust is? Take care of yourself. Goodbye, Sandy. It was 13:40 at work, and I was called to the reception. I had a visitor and a meeting at 2 p.m. I was annoyed, even more than annoyed. There were 15 minutes left before the meeting, and I didn't have time for anything else. Approaching the reception, I froze in place. It was Jerry. I slowly walked towards him. Now I wasn't just annoyed about a meeting I was late for. What are you doing here, Jerry? We didn't part very well. He stood with a tense and painful expression on his face. The only thing I could think about was how to get everything back. When you rightfully left me, you left something behind. I know these things were important to you, and I contacted your brother. I understand that you are not happy to see me. But give me a minute, there's someone who can help. At that moment, he took out his phone and pressed the button. Looking at me, he said into the phone, Yes, here she is. I was right, and you were wrong. And he handed me the phone. The contact name and number belonged to my brother. Dave, what the hell are you doing? I thought you understood. I'm not happy with this. Sandy, before you continue, let me say something. He found something you left behind. Very important. He tried to convey this to me, but let it slip that he was going to Portland for work and a conference. He didn't know you were there. We spent several evenings together. Sister, now you have to trust me. I know you need to close this issue, just like he does. I had to persuade him to meet you. He didn't want to bother you. Blame it all on me, but trust me. Would I let you down? You know I hate it when you make decisions for me. You know that. At this point, I fell silent and looked at Jerry. He looked unsure. He seemed to want to run away from the building. Back on the phone so both Jerry and my brother Dave can hear. Okay, so be it. It really must be something important. Later, I'll make it so hard for you that you won't be able to sit. Bye. At this point, Jerry looked a little relieved. I returned the phone to him. What is this important thing that I left behind? He took a small envelope from his pocket. I knew this was something you would never leave. I tried to give this to your brother, but he refused and convinced me to give it to you personally. He opened the envelope. That's where my mother's engagement ring came from. Oh my God, I thought it was hidden in my jewelry box. I didn't even know it was missing. The shock that I could lose him forever brought tears to my eyes. My mother died when I was 18, and the world was never the same again. I always kept this ring as a symbol of her love for me. Without thinking, I grabbed him and hugged him tightly. Jerry froze, and I immediately pulled away. I crossed the line, but he was right, it was very important to me. Thank you very much for returning this to me. I don't even know what to say. I was still wiping away my tears. Sandy, I actually have a favor to ask of you. He hesitated, and please don't be shy to refuse. I'll understand. He hesitated again. I would like to invite you to dinner. Just dinner, nothing more. I have 3 things I'd like to talk to you about. The first is to return the other things you left behind. The second is to apologize. And the third is to thank you. Listen, Jerry, I have a meeting in 5 minutes. Don't know. I looked at his face and squeezed the ring tightly. I made a decision. What hotel did you stay at? At the downtown Hilton. I will meet you at Bistro 921 at 8 p.m. And now I need to go to a meeting. See you there. Thank you, Sandy. After work, I went home to clean up and check my jewelry box. I was sure that the ring was always in the secret compartment that I made at the bottom of the box. And indeed, the false bottom was not laid as I usually did. Missing was the engraved diamond and platinum pendant that Jerry gave me, as well as another necklace he gave me. He loved ordering jewelry for me, and I liked his taste. I changed into an evening dress. Not sexy, but elegant. I went to the meeting not to renew the relationship, but to talk. If he's going to see me, let him see what he missed. I ordered a taxi through Uber. I could have taken the metro, but I didn't want to endure the crowds. I arrived at Bistro 921 at 7:30 and saw that Jerry was already there. He sat so that he could see everyone who approached the restaurant. Jerry stood up, smiling at me. Sandy, thank you for agreeing to meet. Can I order you something from the bar? The table will be ready in no earlier than 15 minutes. A glass of local Oregon Cabernet, if possible. I'm a local now. He called the waitress over, and the wine appeared with minimal delay. Having known him in the past, I knew he had already left her a generous tip. So, what conference did you come to Portland for? It's a long way from Cleveland and Shaker Heights. After I stopped being an idiot, I decided to focus on my career. I changed direction. Instead of just being an accountant with a new CPA license, I used my knowledge of the latest version of the Oracle accounting system over the past few years and moved into forensic accounting. I realized that I can see what others cannot see. Jerry, is this a direct joke? We both laughed. Jerry was known for not being able to find anything in our apartment unless it was in plain sight. If something was under the paper, he could no longer find it. Guilty, he answered. But when it comes to accounting and work, it's different. During one of my recent audits, I noticed strange transactions. I asked questions, got logical answers, and moved on. But something didn't give me peace. I returned at night when the accountants were not there. With the help of the DBA, I found out that one of the employees was moving money. Moved money? I clarified. Yes. He used the mistakes I discovered to hide his machinations. He took out about $150,000 a year, maybe more. Accounting firm? You don't work there anymore. Oh, you don't know what happened after you left. His face relaxed and he smiled. Your ingenious and ethical work has had a great influence. By getting involved with spouses, you caused divorces and dismissals. It was the biggest shake-up for that sleepy accounting department. I was the only one who was not affected by this, but I decided to leave anyway. Don was fired, and his wife filed for divorce. It turned out that this was not the first time he was unfaithful. My wife was already preparing for this. Jason, on the other hand, found himself in a serious fight with Loretta, but was given time to find a new job. Diana threatened to sue for sexual harassment, claiming that Don forced her to have sex. She's still there, and everyone is afraid to fire her. At that moment, the waitress came and said that the table was ready. We grabbed our drinks and followed her. We were seated at a table where it was quiet and away from other customers. I saw that he wanted to talk to me alone. I put my mother's ring on after he returned it to me, and all this time away from him, I thought about what happened between us before and what is happening now. The waiter greeted us with a sincere smile. I can always feel when service comes from the heart and when it is just a routine. In this case, Jerry was the first to address the waiter by name and asked to give us a couple of minutes to decide. This was no longer the Jerry I knew. This Jerry no longer stayed in the shadows and let me decide everything for him. Okay, this is not your first time here. After all, this is your hotel. I've been here for the third night, he answered. I had to entertain clients for the last 2 days, so I became quite famous among the staff. I can say the place is not bad, but the clients were sometimes noisy, and we continued the evening at the bar. Well, Jerry, what do you suggest? I asked, and he listed a dish he knew I would like. That said a lot about him. He asked if I would like another glass of wine or something non-alcoholic, adding that he was concerned that I would get home safely and be in shape for work the next day. I didn't tell him that tomorrow was my day off. I had a doctor's appointment and needed some time off from work. We talked about our work. I told him about the big data project I was working on, how things were going in Portland, and how the city was really like that, but at the same time not at all like the show Portlandia. Without saying it directly, he told me how he was taking control of his life. Overall, it was a pleasant dinner with pleasant conversation. Then it was time for dessert, and he asked if I wanted anything. He knew that I had struggled with excess weight all my life, sometimes winning, sometimes losing. Lately, due to the stress associated with moving and a new job, I was clearly losing. I shook my head, refusing, and he asked, "How about coffee then?" The decaf espresso here is not bad. It tastes like Italian brands, not local ones. I've always noticed the difference since you explained it to me. I agreed. After the coffee was served, he cleared his throat, looked at the table, and then at me. As I said earlier, there are 3 things I wanted to talk to you about. Upstairs, I have a box of things you left behind, including that very pie box your brother made. At this, he chuckled nervously. The second thing is an apology. I want to apologize to you. I'm sorry that I treated you badly. We started growing apart because of work, and I lost track of you. I was seduced. I started to frown, but he continued. No one can be seduced without his consent. After all, I chose to be unfaithful to you. I cheated 4 times before I fully realized what I was doing. What I did was patently wrong, stupid, despicable, and so damn dishonest that I will be ashamed of myself for the rest of my life. I was stunned by his language and the way he took responsibility for his actions. I had never heard such words from him before, well, except when he hit his foot hard on the bed at night. It was also the first time I heard such honesty from him. He continued, "You don't deserve this kind of behavior from me. I'm so sorry for what I did to you. You didn't deserve any of this. I was an idiot. Forgive me from the bottom of my heart." This was the third shock. I have never heard such vulgarity from him in all our time together, except for the nightly incidents with the bed. It wasn't his style. He was neither a good boy nor a prude, but he was a sophisticated and caring person, if sometimes a little naive. When he was angry, he used other, colorful and descriptive expressions, sometimes even in Polish or Latin. But he was never rude or offensive. Now I realized how seriously he takes everything he says. I can explain what happened, but that in no way justifies my behavior. He took a sip of wine and looked me straight in the eyes. As a couple, we struggled. You went to clients all the time and stayed there for a week or two. I was studying an accounting program and studying for the CPA exams. I was lonely, and instead of talking to you about it, I allowed myself to be seduced. I allowed it. I was an active participant in this. There's no one to blame but me. No one can be seduced without his consent. He fell silent and took a sip of wine. There will always be temptations in life, and I failed this test, on a big scale. With that, he quietly tried to suppress his sobs. Realizing this, he interrupted himself, embarrassed. The third thing I want to tell you is, thank you. Thank you for these 2 years. I've thought about this a lot over the past few months and realized all the good things we had and who we were. I'm sorry that I betrayed your trust and ruined the good things we had. He paused and then continued, and thank you for your farewell message. At these words, he began to smile. You showed me who that woman really was. You opened my eyes to the fact that I was cheating with a man who was simply using me for his own purposes. You didn't have to do this. You're so much better than I've ever been. Thank you. Jerry, don't underestimate yourself. You remember my brother recorded your extra sessions in our bedroom. I didn't want to see them, and mostly I didn't. But he showed me something important. I don't know if you remember, but there was a moment when Diana spoke unflatteringly about me, and quite harshly. You stopped it and stopped your, session. You didn't see it, but when you turned away, she gave you a double middle finger with such hatred on her face that it's hard to forget. And 2 days later, your boss, Dan, was in our bedroom for dinner, and the next day, Jason. And you should have heard her talk about the partners she was with. Do you remember when your boss sent you on an urgent business trip for a week to conduct an audit? Then he laughed, thinking that everything went well. Jerry, turning slightly pale, nodded slowly. You know, Sandy, I never gave her the key. I changed the locks right after I watched your farewell video. It was honestly amazing. She was speechless, especially when the wives of her partners started calling her at work and on her mobile phone at any time of the day. You probably think I'm just a complete fool, he added sadly. I nodded, confirming, but with the same sadness. Sometimes he was indeed too trusting, but at the same time he was never malicious or mean. You did everything right, Sandy. You exposed me, her and all her partners. You know, I received a flurry of calls from my wives. When they realized that everything was happening right under my nose, they softened. Although they still called me an idiot and a couple of other unprintable words, and I deserve it. Everything we did to this woman was wrong, period. I'm sorry I hurt you. He took a sip of espresso. After being silent for a minute, he suddenly asked, by the way, have you lost any valuables? Now that you asked, that diamond pendant you gave me and another necklace from you are missing. Someone touched the bottom of my jewelry box. I checked it when I got home after work. Sandy, I took the ring from your jewelry box a couple of months ago. I put the false bottom back just like you taught me. I had plans for this ring, but, okay, whatever. At least it was in good hands, and now you have it again. If anything else is missing, let me know, and I will try to replace it or compensate if I can't find an analog. I am responsible for what happened, and I must do everything to fix it. As I was packing my things that morning, I noticed that the spare key was missing from the ring in the closet. You may have been dishonest with me, but there was still some good in you. You may not have respected our relationship, but you respected me. It sounds strange, but that's exactly how I felt, so I thought I should give you a chance to deal with it. Now it was my turn to speak. Jerry, I've been angry with you for a long time. At first I was simply shocked, but then I realized that we had really started to move away from each other. I was having a hard time at work and felt trapped. Life on constant business trips was tempting only for the first few months. I realized that I was not created for this lifestyle. I should have been more honest with you. You were in the same trap as me. I looked down at the table, then looked back into his eyes. I also have to take responsibility for the fact that our relationship has reached a dead end. We weren't good for each other. Work has always been more important than us. These words hung between us in silence for several long minutes. Sandy, I think it's getting late, and I don't want you to be tired by work tomorrow. I nodded, but deep down something told me that I didn't want this evening to end so quickly. We talked honestly and openly, as we had not done in a very long time, since the days when we lived together in Ohio. I thought you said you had a box for me, but I don't see it here. Oh, wait here. I'll bring it from the room now. No problem. Is your place such a mess that you don't want me to see it? I smiled slightly. Well, no, it's just. I would like to continue our conversation. I have a doctor's appointment at 10 a.m. tomorrow, so I don't have to go to work. We have some time if you want. I stopped and looked into his eyes. And I'll call a taxi to take you home. A wide smile appeared on his face. He nodded and motioned for the waitress with the check. I excused myself, went to the ladies' room, and met him at the elevator. We were both nervous during the climb. I had no intimate plans for the evening, and I hoped he understood that. I hoped he didn't have such plans either. When we got to his room, he offered to take something from the minibar and asked me to choose a drink. He himself went to the bedroom and soon returned with a box in which a stack of office paper had previously been stored. Now she doesn't look so heavy anymore. After he placed the box at his feet, I handed him a local craft beer. I understood that it would not be cheap, but it should be at the expense of his entertainment expenses. I grabbed a glass of Merlot and sat down opposite him on the sofa. With a touch of theatricality, Jerry opened the box, shielding my eyes from the contents. He was always playful with me. This evening brought back those pleasant moments that we had before everything turned sour and then completely rotten. The first animal to emerge from the box was Ziggy Zebra, followed by Pinky Flamingo, Dot Ladybug, and finally Slug Snake. I couldn't stop laughing. Do you understand that you are giving me back my childhood? These toys were my friends for many years. I never really played with them, but they stood in my room, like guardians of my world. I looked at them all the time. I forgot that I put them in the far corner of the closet. Then he took out my scruffy Fido and made him lick me before placing him in my hands. The last few months here have been lonely. New job, new city, trying to make new friends. I've already started, but no one compares to someone who knows you so well that you don't need to explain anything. His playfulness reminded me how much more difficult this new life was for me than I thought. With a sly smile, he noticed my anticipation as my two special coffee mugs emerged from the box. The first one was from my mom, a graduation gift. This was the last gift from her before her death. In Italy, they don't say that someone is dead, they say that the person is missing. My mother is missing. He handed me the second mug from Jerry. It cost him $30 at the amusement park shooting range. I laughed at him when he tried to win. We laughed all this evening. It was so magical then. I began to realize that it wouldn't be as much fun anymore, and I was right. Next, he pulled out my photo album. The early photos were from my childhood, and the later ones were of me and Jerry. He didn't try to make it playful, but opened up those pages where there were wonderful moments of my childhood. He knew everything about them. He also made the rounds of photographs of difficult times. Then he pulled out a couple of small items and finished the unpacking with a box of raspberry pie. It came with my brother's instructions on how to set it up correctly. Jerry apparently got a duplicate of them. The original was long ago deleted from my email. Well, my dear sir, now it's my turn to say thank you. You've taken me back to many places with these things. I stopped, looking at the pile of things at my feet. Thank you. At that moment, I realized what I had to do. I walked up to him and hugged him. It was not a sexual gesture, but an emotional one, expressing a newfound connection. Perhaps it was the loneliness I felt in a new city and at a new job, or maybe in the sincere care that he showed me and that I still felt for him. I made an effort to pull away so that this hug would not develop into something more. We spent the rest of the evening talking about our lives, where we were now and what we wanted. There were no conversations about getting back together, but the feeling that we both wanted to keep in touch was strong. At 11, he walked me to the lobby and put me in a taxi. He squeezed my hand in a farewell gesture, and I went home. My brother was right, finishing the old is important. About a week later, I received a call on my cell phone while I was at work. It was the Shaker Heights police. I recognized it immediately from the caller ID. After checking my information, the officer asked about the report of the theft of 2 necklaces. Are they mine? Yes. Did I give them away or lost them? No. I shared that I found the secret compartment in my jewelry box broken open and my necklaces missing. They were custom-made, and I had pictures of me wearing them. She asked me to describe the dress I wore to the Christmas party, and she finished the description herself. I realized that she had photographs. She then asked that the affidavit be signed and sent to her as soon as possible. I contacted a lawyer at work to draft the text of the affidavit, then had it notarized, sent by FedEx, and a scan via email in 2 hours. I never thought I would hear about these jewelry again. They were so beautiful and precious to me. This call was a welcome distraction from what was going on in my life. The day before, I received a call from the doctor's office about a follow-up appointment. The doctor rescheduled the appointment 2 weeks earlier. It didn't sound good, but no one explained anything. The visit was scheduled for tomorrow, Wednesday, so I still had a whole day to worry about. That's what I did, I worried. Maybe I should have had a bowl of ice cream, though. I thought about it, but decided to wait until tomorrow. When I have the facts, I will make a decision. In the meantime, another sleepless night awaited me. I adore doctors. It's not for nothing that medicine is called an art. They don't know everything. A couple of results were rejected in the wrong direction. Maybe it was an accident, maybe not. The doctor wanted to conduct additional examinations. However, my right breast still seemed unusual to her after the mammogram. I thought I could feel a small tumor, but I wasn't sure, and neither was the doctor. It was disturbing. Returning to the fact that medicine is an art. The time to panic came immediately after I left her office. I sat down to talk with a friend after buying myself a single scoop of New York cherry ice cream. It's funny how comfort food can calm you down a little. On the way home, I texted my brother Dave, asking him to video chat after his kids went to bed. Later, while talking to him and Terry, I briefly told them what happened. The 3 of us talked for over an hour. This helped a lot, especially because Terry had been through it herself. Despite the distance of 2,500 miles, being able to see and hear them gave me strength. Terry offered to come and take time off if needed. She is a wonderful mother and an equally wonderful daughter-in-law. Dave also said that he would be with me. Because of the children, they would split their time. Being alone and going through health problems is not easy. I've missed everyone so much over the past couple of weeks, and then Jerry showed up. It was good, but it only increased the feeling of loneliness. Now I need people more than ever. But I knew that I could handle it on my own for now. I am my mother's daughter. I learned a lot from her in her later years. I hoped I could do at least half as well as she did. As expected, doctors confirmed the presence of a lump in the right breast. The next step is to take a tissue sample for a biopsy. Terry warned that due to its location, the procedure could be quite painful. Something like a corkscrew that literally rips out a piece of fabric. No one explained to me why more local anesthesia could not have been used. I was too depressed to object. If it turns out to be anything serious, I will have to return home to Cleveland to the clinic. At least I'll have a support system there. The procedure was an outpatient procedure, and I returned home for a day of rest. The 3 of us agreed that I could handle it myself. If something more serious is needed, someone will definitely come. The biopsy was scheduled for Monday morning. I had the whole weekend to worry. Surprisingly, I still managed to keep the Cherry Garcia ice cream in the freezer. I was talking to Terry on video at noon on Sunday when the doorbell rang. I asked her to wait and went to open it, not expecting any guests at all. Opening the door, I stopped. Jerry stood on the threshold with a bouquet of a dozen roses and a small box in his hand. I was in complete shock, and thoughts were rushing through my head at breakneck speed. I think I stood there with my mouth open for a full minute. "Well, will you at least invite me inside?" Then I hugged him. He handed me the flowers. "I thought you might like them." "Jerry, what are you doing here? What is this?" He put his finger to my lips and handed me the box. "It's yours. I thought I would deliver it personally. Let's go and sit down." We walked over to the couch, and he pushed his laptop away and started talking to Terry and Dave. "You need to come here. You won't believe the weather here. It's as constant darkness as Cleveland." All three laughed. It was true. I finally started to come to my senses. This was no accident. This was planned. I took the laptop from Jerry and looked at my brother and sister-in-law. "You set everything up again, right?" While they theatrically denied, I loudly interrupted them. Thank you very much." Dave laughed. "I could barely resist letting you eat more ice cream, honestly. Actually, it's his turn to talk us into it. Unfortunately, we both got the flu, and you can't be sick. See you later. Bye." And they disconnected. Jerry looked at me, smiling, holding a small box in his hand. "I actually came to give you this. The roses are a bonus. Don't worry, they're certified organic or something." I took the box and shook it slightly. We both laughed. It was a joke we'd shared since childhood that we'd never outgrown. Whenever we gave each other gifts, we always tried to hide the sound or come up with something to confuse. Jerry's best example was glass beads in a small glass jar. Back then, back in college, tickets to an Alkaline Trio concert were hidden inside. He looked at me with a smile, but didn't say anything. I began to untie the ribbon and remove the tape, doing it slowly to see his reaction. Looking at him, I realized that he was in no hurry. Removing the wrapper, I found two small boxes inside, neither of which rattled. We laughed again. I repeated the process with the first box, ribbon, wrapper, another box inside. This time Jerry couldn't help but laugh when he saw my face. I gave him a mock angry look that barely hid my smile. More ribbon, more wrapping, and finally a simple box that opened. My pendant necklace was there. Jerry gave me back my necklace. I looked at him and hugged him tightly. "Well, will you open the second one?" he asked with a smile. "I drove them from Ohio in a covered wagon, across the plains and the Rocky Mountains, fighting the sun and thirst, and then the snow. And here you are being lazy." I interrupted him with a real kiss. At that moment, I seemed to melt in his arms and cry quietly. He hugged me and began to rock me gently, holding me tightly in his arms. At that moment, all the stress of the past weeks came out of me. The stress of medical problems, the loneliness of having everyone I loved 2,500 miles away. It all came out in tears. He just held me silently, understanding that this is exactly what I needed. I knew he knew it. And yet, this damn brother. He always cared for his little sister, as I cared for my mother in her last days and later for Terry while she was recovering. Jerry sat next to me, just holding me until I decided to move. Time seemed to stand still. Slowly, I pulled myself out of his arms, looked into his eyes, wiping away tears. "Thank you for being here with me. You have no idea how much this means." He didn't let me finish. He kissed me on the cheek and hugged me tightly again, expressing more than any words could. "I know you, Sandy. You have always been a strong and resourceful woman. But I remember you telling me about the time you cared for your mother in recent years. By that time, it was just you and your brother. Nonno Adriano died within a year before this. Last week, your brother called me and said that he and Terry couldn't come because of the flu. I realized that I needed to be there so you could have someone to be with." He paused, then smiled. "Now guess what's in the other box?" "How did you get these things back?" I asked, holding the pendant so that the light fell on it. I've been wondering this ever since the officer from Shaker Heights called me to confirm that it was indeed my jewelry. What happened? Sandy, your promptness helped. The response to the officer, then your statements, photographs, and documents, that was the key. They were able to prove that Diana had the necklaces. Remember Janet from HR? I nodded. We talked once at the last Christmas party. She was the one I talked to after you left. I told her everything. He was extremely honest and asked, if possible, not to connect me with Diana. But this turned out to be impossible, since we did not work in the same department, and I had no contact with Diana during working hours. I was left alone. Dan was fired outright, and Jason was told he needed to look for a new job. No one could touch Diana until there was a police report about that necklace. I collected testimony from the artist who made the jewelry, a receipt, my statement to the police, photographs of Janet wearing both jewelry at work, your testimony, and the case was closed. In the end, I decided not to prosecute her in court. She quit, signed a release waiving any sexual harassment claims against the company, and returned both necklaces to you. Dan's wife was also able to recover some valuables that were missing from their home. Oh, one more thing. When they were so happy that they were able to end this mess, they asked me what I wanted as a thank you. I asked Jason to get his job back. I know Jason made a big mistake, and so did this idiot, but he's not a bad person. He did everything he could to find a job, but the situation was difficult. His wife Loretta became pregnant right before his gaffe. I asked them not only to give him his job back, but also to hire her instead of Diana. I've known Loretta since high school. She has always been a hard worker. The HR director thought about it for a day and agreed. I'm sure Janet helped. Jason made a mistake, but his wife and child shouldn't have to suffer because of it. And one more thing. There is another reason why I decided not to sue her. He fell silent and began to look more serious. Over the last couple of months, I have realized that Diana is a lost soul. I looked into her past. Her childhood was so unstable. She really grew up with a broken destiny. Lots of inappropriate behavior, self-destructive behavior. When we agreed, I suggested that she return the stolen goods and abandon her threats to sue the company. In exchange, the company will pay for her Cobra and personal therapy for 18 months, and I will drop all charges. I got the company to pay for this part. They are not such heartless misers, but they must protect themselves. Removing the threat of litigation convinced them. Diana jumped at the offer. She realized she was backed into a corner, and I offered her a kind of get-out-of-jail card. I think this was the last thing she expected. I hope she takes this chance. I'm not sure anyone else will ever give her that chance. We were both silent after that. I've been thinking about his changes since we broke up. He has matured a lot. It was starting to get dark, and I felt hungry. I was not allowed to eat solid food after 7 in the evening or drink liquids after midnight. Hey, have you eaten? I still have a few hours before the hunger strike begins. What do you think? He started laughing. I looked at him and asked, okay, what's so funny? Oh, I remembered our last fancy dinner in Ohio. I really deserve it, huh? He shook his head regretfully. I almost confessed to you at dinner that I had cheated on you, but I decided to wait until we got back to the condominium. I'm so sorry for what I did. Here's a man who flew 2,500 miles out of the blue to support his ex-girlfriend ahead of a non-life-threatening biopsy procedure. You know, Jerry, I won't tell you that what's past is past. I can forgive, but I will never forget. Having said that, let's turn the page and move on. We'll come back to this together, but for now, let's move forward. I smiled and extended my hand. We shook hands in agreement and perhaps something more. I continued. If you don't want to go somewhere, how about ordering something to your house? There is a good Thai cafe nearby, just 3 blocks away. I have a menu, and you can pick up your order. This will give me time to clean up and get myself in order. I'm not the neatest person when I'm not waiting for anyone. We both laughed about it. I'm Oscar, and he's Felix from The Odd Couple. If he were not Pole, he would be Felix. But I would still remain unkempt. With these words, We ordered food with a supply for 2 days. He helped me tidy up the living room and then left, saying he would walk back and forth slowly to give me more time. I took a quick shower and set the table for his return. I decided to eat something bland to avoid problems, and I succeeded. Dumplings were allowed, and I ate almost all of the very fresh spring rolls. It was safe. Jerry tried everything else. I knew I could enjoy it later after the procedure. It was already about 8 in the evening when I suddenly realized that Jerry had arrived only with flowers and a box of decorations. "Where is your luggage? I don't see him." "He's at the hotel. I went there before I came here." "Aren't you going to stay here tonight?" His face took on an uncertain expression. "I didn't want to assume anything. I came here to support you and didn't want to force or imply anything more. You didn't wait for me, and that would have been too presumptuous." I thought about his words and then nodded in agreement. "Now that you're here, will you stay the night?" "I don't know, it will be." "Jerry, let me be honest. I was here alone, coping with the help of my brother and his wife through video calls. I can handle it alone. But I don't want it that way. Are you here? I want you to stay with me tonight." It would be a lie to say I'm not happy to hear that. But there is one more point. You're in a tough spot right now. If I stay, I'll feel like I'm taking advantage of it. I don't want it that way. I can return to the hotel late this evening, and I will come here early in the morning to take you to the hospital and then bring you back. I will stay with you after the procedure until you feel better. Is this suitable? This is not quite the Jerry I knew before. This one was more respectful. "I understand your point of view. Let me tell you how it feels from my side." I straightened up in my chair, pushed the plates away, and cleared my throat. "I really want you to stay tonight. You can sleep on the couch if you want, but I just need someone to be there. I miss this terribly. It was the second most painful thing after your betrayal." He frowned and wanted to say something, but I continued. "I'm not asking for us to become lovers again, but I need your warmth, care, and just physical presence. That's all I ask. And you're right, it would be wrong to raise other topics now. We can come back to them later when all of this is hopefully over." "Sandy, I don't think I." Now I decided to drive him into a corner. "If you don't stay, I'll call 2 of my male friends. These friends never let me up. They will stay with me, in my bed." The look of shock on his face caught him off guard. I played hard. What? I didn't think you had. I know you can handle it. Do you want to know their names?" He nodded, with real fear in his eyes. "The first one is Ben. They never travel apart." I paused, looking at him with steely eyes. "And the second one is Jerry, and with them is their buddy Cherry Garcia, to be exact." And I burst out laughing. His face changed from fear to anger, then to relief, and finally he laughed with me too after 2 seconds. He knew about my weakness for ice cream, my lifesaver. "Honestly, Jerry, you don't have to take your clothes off. I just miss the human contact of someone who cares about me. You can sleep on the sofa if it's comfortable. Please?" He nodded, much to my relief. 10 minutes later, he took my car to go to the hotel to get his things and check out. While he was gone, I made up the sofa. We spent the evening talking quietly, playing cards, and even watching a melodrama together. He distracted me from thoughts about what awaited me in the coming days. We went to our rooms exactly at midnight. At 2 o'clock in the morning, I woke up and tossed and turned in bed for more than an hour. It was impossible to fall asleep again. My mind was filled with anxiety and terrible thoughts. The real Beach scared me with his stories, and he won. I went to the kitchen to get water, but remembered that I couldn't drink anything anymore. When I returned to the bedroom, I saw Jerry sleeping peacefully on the sofa. I leaned over him to stroke his forehead and looked at him for a long time. This man traveled 2/3 of the continent to be with me when I needed someone important. He knew it. He is not just someone, he is someone special. I carefully removed the blanket and quietly lay down next to him, clinging to him. I heard his breathing, felt his warmth. I felt at peace. My dark thoughts began to go away. The next thing I know, it's dawn and Jerry is waking me up with a warm face towel. If you really have to wake up on a day where you can't eat or drink coffee, this is the best way to do it. He looked at me as I slowly came back from sleep, allowing my brain to begin to function. He remembered that in the morning, I always needed a little time to wake up. Today, it was especially difficult without coffee. Good morning, sleepyhead. Did you get lost at night when you were coming back from the bathroom? Sorry, I just couldn't sleep. I snuggled up to you, and it immediately calmed me down. You took away my fear. I hope you don't mind. It was unexpected when I found you next to me in the morning. But when you got settled, I put my arm around your shoulders to show you that everything was okay. You moaned softly and remained motionless. Is it true? I didn't even feel you move. I just felt safe. Well, you better take a shower now. We have 45 minutes to leave the house and have time to take a taxi to the hospital. Are you ready? Do I have a choice? It was great to have Jerry around. He took care of me, held my hand, and gave me encouraging words. He let me cry on his shoulder when no one was looking, saving me from embarrassment. I can honestly say, and I will tell him this, that I completely forgive him for his affair with Diana. He was there when I needed him and has been honest and sincere ever since. Even if we don't end up together because of the small issue of 2,500 miles, I know he has redeemed himself in my eyes. I hope that in ours too. Knowing Jerry, this will be the hardest. We spent the next 2 days in the apartment. He gave me medicine, cooked me food, talked to me, and even convinced me to open my laptop and look at my work emails. I knew I could go back to work in a day, but I decided to take advantage of the time while Jerry was here. Plus, I still had my comfort food Cherry Garcia hidden in the freezer, frozen behind the steaks and frozen vegetables. She didn't call me so loudly when Jerry was around. On the third day after the procedure, I went for an appointment. We were both at the doctor's office when I was told it was a cyst, a benign cyst. All this panic turned out to be a false alarm. I burst into tears of relief. Jerry hugged me tightly. It was then that I realized that all this did not happen in vain. This was a signal to reconsider my life. When we got back to the apartment, I called my brother and his wife to share the good news. They were delighted. Both cleared their calendars in advance if additional operations were needed. When I finished the call, I looked at Jerry. Now it's my turn to invite you to dinner. We should celebrate this. What are the most decent things you have? Sandy, that's not necessary. Let's just... No, it has to be special. You paid for that dinner that ended our relationship. I walked up to him and hugged him by the shoulders. And now that nothing is hanging over me anymore, I want to pay for the first dinner of our new beginning. There are no guarantees, no promises that we cannot keep. We need to try to start over again honestly. I kissed him and he hugged me tightly. I don't know how it will all work out, but we have a lot of challenges ahead of us. All we can do is try, and I believe that we will try. Wait a minute. We have so many things to discuss. 2,500 miles, our work, our... And then I put my finger to his lips. We both know that. We will resolve these issues. The main thing is that we both want to be together. We'll handle things better this time. He smiled and nodded. We'll make it through, Sandy, this time for sure, he said and hugged me tenderly, kissing me. Thus ended our plans for an evening out. We ordered food from a Greek restaurant 2 blocks away and took 2 bottles of wine. By the time we finished half the second bottle, I realized that I couldn't stop anymore. I picked him up from the sofa. My legs were a little unsteady, but he held up no better. I wrapped my arms around his neck and put them on his shoulders. I needed to be serious. Before we go any further, I must say that I have not taken pills for a long time, and I have no other protection. I'm not against children, but such decisions cannot be made in one evening. I started unbuttoning his shirt. But other than that, I'm open. I leaned in and kissed him, wrapping my tongue around his lips. He pulled away, brushed the hair out of my face, and said, "We have the whole night ahead of us, love, the whole night." He hugged me tenderly and kissed my hands. I took him to the bedroom. While he went to get food, I made the bed, got the candles ready to light, set a bottle of wine to breathe, and prepared a cheese plate with crackers and meat. I didn't want us to have an excuse to leave this room. When we entered the bedroom, I lit the candles and returned to his arms. He grabbed me and squeezed my buttocks. It seemed to me that he wanted to get a little naughty, so I pushed him onto the bed and jumped on top. Unfortunately, I landed on my chest and groaned loudly in pain. Laughing at my awkwardness, he reached out and grabbed me by the shoulders. His fingers touched my shoulders and he frowned. First of all, Sandy, you need a massage. Your body is one continuous tense, not from all the stress you have experienced. So don't argue, lie down on the bed and start relaxing while I get ready. But I started, but he interrupted. First things first, Sandy. Don't argue. You're probably right. I'll lie down and you'll take care of my neck knots. And in the back, and in the arms, and in the legs. Maybe I can even help with your tense neck and stiff head. Although with the last two it's unlikely. I don't have enough patience, he said and laughed. You're a witty man, Jerry Witty. But thank you for everything. Jerry, holding onto the wall for stability after drinking wine, went to the bathroom. He took the bottle of hand lotion and came back and sat next to me. Sandy, you need to relax, he said, brushing the hair away from my face and neck, then gently stroking my cheek. He asked me to turn over so he could unbutton my blouse and jeans. He then took off his blouse, putting it aside. He picked up the phone, and a minute later a melodic flute sounded in the room. Relaxing music. He unclasped my bra and carefully moved the straps to the side. I heard him warming up the lotion in his hands and then whispered in my ear, "Let the world go away. You are on the beach, without worries. You feel the warmth of the sun and the silence of nature. Peace surrounds you." His hands gently touched my shoulders, beginning a light massage. It penetrated not only into my body, but also deeper into my soul. His movements became more intense. He found tense areas and achieved their relaxation. Where the tension was already deep-rooted, he tried to alleviate it as best he could. The body, tense from many years of stress, began to become light. This feeling was almost forgotten for me. His hands slowly warmed up my muscles, starting from my shoulders and ending with my fingertips. When he was done with his hands, he carefully removed my jeans. I sat up slightly to make it easier for him, but he whispered for me to just relax. He folded his jeans neatly is such meticulousness only reserved for accountants. Lying on the bed in my underwear, I again heard him warming the lotion in his hands and felt his touch on my feet. His caring hands continued their way up my calves and thighs. When I expected him to take the last one off me, he asked me to turn over. I looked into his eyes, and at that moment I saw not only warmth and care, but also a slight shadow of regret. He took off my bra and put it aside as I rolled over onto my back. Now I could look straight into his eyes. His hands continued their path, but with more focus and determination. He took my leg and began to gently massage, stretch, and knead the muscles. Every movement brought relief and reminded me how much I had let my body go under the weight of everyday worries. Jerry didn't massage for pleasure or seduction. He did what I needed right now. This was the sign of a true partner, a person who understands what matters most. He became more attentive than ever. This was not just a massage. It was a lesson in love. When he reached my shoulders and began to knead them again, I met his gaze. His eyes radiate warmth and tenderness, but I also saw a hint of sadness. I know Jerry too well. He will never be able to forgive himself for the mistakes of his past. Even though I forgave him a long time ago, he can't let it go on his own. We both knew we couldn't truly walk away from each other. Even when I left for Portland, he did not give up and came for me. And for this, I will be grateful to my brother, who convinced him to fight for us. I raised my hand and pulled his head towards me. Our lips met in a tender, warm kiss that was neither passionate, nor rushed, nor seductive. It was a kiss of care, affection, connection. We became one again. He didn't pull away, but shifted his weight slightly onto his forearms. I raised my hands to his shoulders, sliding them under his shirt. He shuddered at my touch, but soon moaned softly as my fingers began to explore his back. His arms gently wrapped around my hips, and he carefully pulled my underwear down. I raised my hips slightly to make it easier for him. He slowly took off his panties and put them aside. My body was relaxed after the massage, the wine, and the emotional relief that the biopsy was over. But I also felt a different kind of tension, the anticipation and excitement of our new beginning. With a smile, he stepped back to take off his clothes. I haven't seen him naked for a long time. Months had passed since I had been able to admire my lover. He's been so gentle with me these last few days that I've started to forget what it's like to be close to him. Jerry was not the epitome of the ideal man from glossy magazines. He didn't have a big torso, six-pack abs, or any of the things that are considered attributes of beauty. He had a couple of extra pounds around his waist. He was simple, but that was my Jerry. His main asset is his soul. He loved me, and I loved him back. Perhaps even more so because of everything we've been through together. He lay down next to me, his body wrapped around mine. We lay there, warming each other with warmth and tenderness. His fingers slowly slid over my skin, and I studied his face, shoulders, and chest. We kissed again. This kiss was neither a call nor a game. It was the intimacy of two people who had been away from each other for too long. It was a desire to restore that connection that we both valued so deeply. My fingers slid down to his stomach as his hands began to move up my thighs. He carefully spread my legs, and his touch became more gentle and caring. Jerry had always been attentive and caring, but now, after all our trials, there was something especially reverent in his actions. Every touch reminded me of those times when we understood each other without words. My breathing became a little heavier, and my heart beat faster. In moments of intimacy with Jerry, I felt a special connection return between us, full of love and understanding. When everything calmed down, he carefully covered us with a blanket and turned off the light. "Jerry, what about you?" "I want." "Good night, Sandy. Tomorrow we will be together, and the day after tomorrow too," he said, hugging me and settling down next to me. His hand rested on mine, resting in the curve between my breasts. I smiled, closed my eyes, and fell asleep, thinking only about him. I woke up in the middle of the night. 2 bottles of wine gave me an excuse to go to the bathroom. I quietly got out of bed and did what I needed to do. As I returned to bed, I noticed that we were both still naked, and he was sleeping on his side, facing me. I brushed his hair out of his face and smiled. We will have to deal with a lot of things, but now I know that we both understand that the most important thing is for each other. I was still slightly intoxicated from the drink, and I remember that he allowed me to fall asleep earlier. Now he is asleep and I am awake. He is sleeping, lying next to him, and I look at him, enjoying the moment of peace and quiet. His breathing is even, and I can catch the faint rhythm of his dreams. I feel the closeness and care that he gives me, and it fills me with a feeling of gratitude and love. I want to do something nice for him to express my gratitude for everything he does for me. I gently touch his hand, trying not to wake him, and allow myself to enjoy this moment of togetherness and silence. I stroke him carefully, feeling the warm skin under my fingers. A feeling of mischief awakens inside me, as if I was doing something forbidden, but at the same time so natural and correct. It's an amazing feeling of freedom and joy to be so close to the person I love. My gesture elicits a slight reaction, and I can't help but smile when I notice him moving slightly, reacting even in his sleep. I feel his body gradually begin to wake up, and this brings me a feeling of warmth and satisfaction. I notice in his movements that he is not against my presence, and this strengthens my confidence in our intimacy. I continue to watch him, immersed in every little detail, his subtle movements, light sighs, relaxed facial features. At this moment, I am completely absorbed in how he comes to his senses, feeling our invisible but strong connection. His hand gently touches my head, and I understand that he has already woken up, but has not yet fully returned to reality. I slowly pull away, taking my time, giving him the opportunity to finally wake up and get used to the new day. We look at each other and our gazes meet in quiet understanding and joy. We smile at each other, and this moment belongs only to the two of us, a moment of sincere care, love, and mutual understanding, when words are not needed and feelings speak for themselves. This moment is full of emotions and warmth, and I know that this is our little morning that will remain with us forever. Hello, my love. I didn't finish yesterday. Now it's my turn, I said. I heard another groan, and he began to reach out to me. I pulled away, not giving him a chance to reach. Now it's my turn to take care of you. Relax and lie still while I enjoy pleasing you. But Sandy, now it's my turn. I need to do something for you. Can't I give you pleasure? Can't I enjoy your body, the body of my beloved? We must share everything, my love, I whispered with a smile. We can't go any further because we have no protection, but I want you to feel happy and relaxed. I returned to his head, gently touching it. Don't worry, I'll take care of you, I said with a slight laugh as he gently held my head. I stopped again, meeting his eyes. What happened, Jerry? I asked with a playful smile. Your beloved is trying for you, and you are so silent. No answer, no words. Don't even think about stopping, he replied, barely containing his excitement. This is so wonderful, but I won't hold out much longer. Too much time has passed for me. I stroked him gently, continuing my caresses. You can completely trust me, my love, I whispered, returning to my actions with a smile. Everything will be fine. He pulled my head away, his eyes were wide open, and I could see how much he was experiencing this moment. Sandy, I need to come to my senses a little, otherwise I won't be able to hold it in, he said, trying to catch his breath. I gently let go of him, sat down next to him, and smiled at him, allowing him to catch his breath and relax. Jerry, we're starting all over again, aren't we? I've been next to you for the past few days, not being able to touch you like this. I vowed that if medically everything was okay, we should go beyond the usual. I have to try new things with you, something unusual. We don't talk when we make love. We try to be careful. We don't play with each other. Why? Why, Jerry? Is this prohibited? Jerry looked at me and smiled. We have always been quiet and being careful. It was also convenient and clean. He thought for a second. Do you really want me to do this? Do you really want to try this? Would you like to try it, Jerry? What do we have to lose? We know it won't kill us, right? He nodded, his eyes sparkling with anticipation. Borders collapsed, a new day began, a new relationship, a new life. With these thoughts, I leaned over to Jerry again and continued to caress him, doing it loudly for the first time in my life. I found myself between his legs, feeling his presence and how his breathing became deeper. He looked at me, there were new, unknown sensations in his gaze, as if something was opening inside him that had previously been hidden. He leaned forward a little to get closer, and his voice sounded quiet but clear. I want to see you touch me. I want to see your eyes at this moment. He spoke these words with such passion and warmth that it took my breath away. He gently ran his hand through my hair and then gently but firmly guided me. We met our eyes, and at that moment I realized that a special connection had formed between us. What was previously hidden became open, and this discovery was exciting. My breathing became rapid, my heart beat faster, as if I had stepped into unknown territory where only the two of us were. I have never seen him so decisive, so confident in his desires. His every gesture and every word was filled with frankness and a desire to be closer. There was something in his gaze that told me, here and now is just our moment. He slowly leaned back on the bed, lowering himself down, his eyes never leaving me for a second. I noticed how he was trying to catch my every move, as if he wanted to remember it forever. His hand continued to touch my head, his fingers gently stroking my hair, and I felt in every touch something more than just desire. It was a tender, deep display of love, trust, and true intimacy. I raised my head slightly to see his face. He had a tired but happy smile. We were completely absorbed in each other, and there was something special about that moment, real, pure intimacy that didn't require words. His breathing gradually became calmer, more measured, and I felt his body begin to relax. It was a special silence filled with a feeling of safety and warmth. "You are incredible," he whispered, barely audible, but in these words there was all the tenderness that he could express. I smiled and reached to cover us with the blanket, wanting to preserve this moment between us, as if hiding it from the entire outside world. But his hand stopped me. He didn't want anything to appear between us that could interfere with this intimacy. We lay huddled close to each other, not thinking about time and not noticing anything around. Only his breath, my breath, his warmth nearby. This was the moment when everything else simply ceased to matter. In this moment, there was love, intimacy, trust, and a complete feeling that we were together and that nothing could break this connection. "Don't even think we're done, Sandy. I'm not going to give up so easily." He pulled the blanket off of us and put me back on my back, carefully spreading my legs. His hand slid to my thigh and a smile appeared on his face. "A little excited?" he asked, sensing my excitement. He lowered his head closer to my face, leaving kisses on my skin, and his eyes met mine. I was absorbed in this moment when our gazes crossed, and each of us was captured by the gaze of the other. He carefully placed a pillow under my waist, lifting me a little higher. There was real determination on his face now as he made a move that helped me get more comfortable. He kissed my thighs each time he came closer, and this aroused strong feelings in me. He threw one of my legs over his shoulder, then the other, providing support and comfort. It was a new sensation for me, but I felt that he was taking care of my every move. His touch was gentle, and every caress he made me feel special. He pulled away for a moment to look me in the eyes. "Why are you silent, Sandy? I want to hear how you feel now that I'm here next to you. I want to hear how you enjoy the moment." I smiled and moaned, enjoying his care. "Do you want me to tell you how good your touch feels to me? Do you want to hear me thank you?" I whispered. That's when he paused, and I felt him remove his hand. "Don't stop." I started, but his hand moved, and I felt a new touch, soft and confident. My sensations became even more intense, and I could not contain my emotions. I was breathing heavily as he continued, and I tried to hug him and feel him even closer. It was a moment of complete unity when the world around us seemed to disappear. He pulled away again, and I hoped I could get some rest. He took the lotion and looked at me, letting me know he wanted to continue. His eyes were full of tenderness, and I simply nodded, agreeing with him. All I could do was trust him, and that was exactly what I wanted. "I need to be with you right now," he whispered, his voice soft and his eyes shining with warmth and desire. He looked at me as if I was the only person in the world, and at that moment I realized how close we were, how important this connection was to us. I answered him with a slight nod, feeling how my feelings overwhelmed me, bringing a feeling of joy and peace at the same time. He reached out to me, his arms wrapped around me, pulling me closer, and I felt all the strength and tenderness of this touch. I loved being in his arms, feeling his warmth and confidence. He continued, trying to choose words that expressed his emotions. "I want to take care of you and be close to you, be attentive to you, to your every feeling." There was a promise in his voice, a promise to be there, to give me a feeling of safety and security. I pressed myself against him, resting my head on his chest. His heart beat evenly and calmly, creating a rhythm that seemed to me like real music. I felt his warmth, and it warmed me not only physically, but also mentally. His fingers gently ran through my hair, and I closed my eyes, enjoying every moment, every movement that spoke more than any words. "I want to feel you next to me. I want to be a part of every moment we spend together," I said without raising my head. My words sounded quiet, but I knew that he heard them, that every emotion of mine was conveyed to him without distortion. I carefully raised my hand and gently touched his cheek, enjoying the softness of the skin under my fingers. Then I reached out to his lips, their softness, their warmth were so familiar and familiar. We exchanged a light kiss, filled with tenderness and the promise of something more, but not in a hurry, but something that only the two of us could share when the right moment came. He looked at me with that special smile that was only for me. In his eyes, I saw care and sincere affection. "I will be with you as long as you want, His voice sounded confident and so gentle that I felt warmth spreading in my soul. He leaned closer, his lips lightly brushing my ear, and the whisper of his words made me feel protected and loved. He affectionately hugged me tighter, as if trying to show that there were no boundaries between us, only common closeness, mutual trust. His touches were careful, he was attentive to my reactions, to my feelings. Every moment was filled with care and understanding. We were immersed in each other, in this special moment where nothing existed except the two of us. His eyes, his hands, his voice, all this said that for him, I was the most important person in this universe. I felt his support, his confidence in every movement. He didn't rush me, he allowed me to feel everything that was happening, to be in this moment as much as I needed. I felt how with every minute our unity became deeper and more complete. It was like a dance not rushed, but amazingly beautiful, in which every step mattered, in which we moved together, following only our music. His love was palpable, like a touch, like a gentle breeze that brings coolness on a hot day. I wanted to share every moment with him, to leave every second in my memory, because these were not just moments, they were part of us, our history. And in those moments, I knew that there was nothing more valuable than being here, and now, in his arms, feeling his heart next to mine, and knowing that there is a place in this world where I can be completely myself. We continued to hold on to each other, feeling that our togetherness was not only a physical presence, but also a spiritual connection that we had created together. Everything that happened was so intimate, so personal that there was no room for the outside world. Just the two of us, our emotions, our feelings, our love, and nothing more. It was our refuge from everything that was happening around us, a place where we could feel absolutely free and sincere. At that moment, I realized that he was my man, the one who sees me as real, who accepts my every weakness, every emotion. And I knew that I also wanted to be the person for him who would be there, support, and surround him with care. At that moment, I realized that nothing more was needed. Just be with him, here and now, and share with him this amazing moment that belongs only to us. I looked at him, and there was determination in his eyes. He was focused on pleasing me. It wasn't for his pleasure, he always wanted me to be completely satisfied. But this time, I won't let him just give today, everything is new. You always liked to be close to me, didn't you, love? His touch caressed me while I felt his attention and care. I noticed that the angle was a little awkward for him, but he quickly found a way to get it right. Tell me, what do you like most about moments like these? Jerry smiled at me. I love the feeling of intimacy and passion that we experience. It's always so sincere, such real emotions. I feel completely alive when we are together. His breathing became a little heavier, and I realized that he was completely focused on this moment. But now, after so many months of separation, I see your face next to me. I see you smile, I feel your passion. I see you yearning for me, and that makes this moment special. His hands caressed me more tenderly and confidently. That's it, Jerry. Don't let me go. Feel this moment, be with me completely, I whispered, feeling how this moment became more and more significant for both of us. We felt unity, passion, and it all seemed immensely important. We both felt excited, and our hugs became tighter. We stayed like that, huddled close to each other, for a few more minutes, enjoying the silence and closeness. When we finally separated, I handed Jerry a napkin to dry himself with and took one for myself. These moments of closeness reminded us how important the moments when we are just together are. We lay down next to each other again, hugging each other, and fell asleep in each other's arms. Jerry came to Portland 3 weeks ago to spend the weekend with me, and he'll be here again today. The fear for our health brought us closer together emotionally. Since then, we've been trying to figure out our relationship and have had both good and difficult moments. I realized pretty quickly after he left that I was still angry at him. It was no longer a reason to break up, but the pain it caused remained. However, we moved on, communicated more, and opened up to each other. It was good, we grew up together. But why is growth always so painful? It's funny, but I trust him more now. Relationships have changed. They became better, more mature, closer. Jerry was no longer afraid to tell me things that he had previously hesitated to tell me. We both began to express our true feelings and thoughts, opening our inner worlds. Probably, after his betrayal and our gradual distance, this was our chance to become closer again. But let no one deceive themselves. It is difficult. It's worth it, but still difficult. I waited all week for Friday for Jerry to arrive, and it was a very hard week. I invited Tim from work to the bar to pass the time before Jerry arrived. Tim has been a good friend of mine since I came to Portland. I didn't know anyone at my new job, and he helped me settle in, showed me how things worked, and supported me. Jerry was supposed to fly in at 5 p.m. and meet us around 6. It all depended on the flight and how quickly he would get from the airport. I wanted them to finally meet. I didn't finish work until 5:30, a little late for a Friday. Told Timothy to come to the Bent Brick in Little Italy at 6. It's a nice meeting place. Tim and I went there for drinks after work a couple of times. Tim, as always, was delighted with my proposal. I arrived at 5:45 and Tim was already there. He ordered my favorite Oregon Merlot for me. We talked a little about the work and projects our teams were working on. After a couple of minutes, I turned the conversation to the weekend. Tim, I forgot to tell you that Jerry is in town today. He is due to meet us in half an hour. Finally, you can meet. That's great, Sandy, but I just remembered I have to see one of my tenants. He's having problems with something, and this is the only time we're both free. I have to go. Please tell Jerry I'm sorry I couldn't see him. See you on Monday. He leaned over, kissed me on the cheek, and quickly left. It was a little strange until recently he was in no hurry to get anywhere. My glass was empty, and it took me a few minutes to catch the waiter and order another one. While he was taking the order, Jerry came up to me. He was carrying a bag with a laptop on his shoulder and rolling his suitcase behind him. "Oh, Jerry, it's so great to have you here. You just missed meeting Tim. He had to leave, but he said hi to you." "I know, I've been watching you for over 15 minutes. I got a little tense. "So why didn't you join us? This is my friend Tim." I looked at his face. The expression was clearly not good. "I have nothing to hide from you." Jerry now had an even more worried look on his face. "It's true, you have nothing to hide from me, and you didn't hide anything from me. I think there are things you just might not know. Can I tell you what I saw? I think this will help you understand." I nodded. He sat down with his drink and looked me straight in the eyes with obvious concern. "You talked about Tim a couple of times. He helped you get a new job here and became your local contact. Very friendly guy, seems like a good person, doesn't he?" I nodded. "I think I'm going to hear a but now, right, Jerry?" Now he nodded. "You know that I trust you completely and do not blame you for anything. But what I want to say may look different. It can make me look petty, weak, or afraid. We are now trying to build our relations on honesty and openness. So there you go. Tim seduces you, and he does it quite well, quite skillfully." "Come on, Jerry, how can you think that? He was my friend here. I don't believe in it." "Okay, I understand how you feel. Then can I ask you a couple of questions? Do you agree?" I nodded. This was all starting to seriously irritate me. "He was warm and helpful from the very beginning when you met him, right?" I nodded. "Did you honestly tell him that you weren't in a relationship when you came to Portland? He offered help whenever he could. All signs of a good person, right?" "Yes, and what does this have to do with him seducing me?" "This was just the beginning. There are many such good people. You yourself helped others like that, remember? Remember Pat, your colleague. After the interview, when she accepted the offer, you immediately contacted her and helped her with the details of moving to Portland." I nodded. "But this is different, Sandy. He first started inviting you to lunch with the group, right? Then you told me that his schedule got so crazy that it ended up being just you two and no one else, right?" I nodded again, but something sank inside me. How many people at this level of management have such crazy schedules? And after 3 months, it became after work drinking. When did he first suggest going to dinner after work? I never told Jerry that we even went out to dinner. For me, it was just dinner with a friend after work. About a month before you showed up with my ring. Tim is married and has 2 children. Let me guess, this doesn't come up in conversation very often. Don't most parents talk about their children, show pictures of them, keep them on their desks, go to school events? Does he ever talk about his wife? The whole picture instantly appeared before me. Oh my God, Jerry, I'm starting to understand what you mean. It doesn't look very good, does it? He shook his head. He doesn't talk about his children and says that everything is bad at home. Mentions that the marriage is not very successful, and that's all. Let me guess. He regularly compliments you, praises your work, supports you if any problems appear in your life. Especially if these are problems that you yourself create. We are all human, we all do this. Shouldn't a friend help you see what you might not see yourself? When I arrived, I saw him touching you. Quite innocent, not intimate. Quick response, no hesitation. How many times has he touched you in the last 15 minutes? Once or twice. Sandy, he felt the freedom to touch your cheek, to put his hand on yours. In the 15 minutes that I watched, he touched you 6 times. To your hand, your palms, your cheek. How often do friends of the same sex do this? How often do friends of different genders do this? This is only appropriate if you are married or in a relationship. It's natural, warm, and friendly. The problem is that you are not his wife or his partner. Jerry, the reason he left so suddenly is because I told him you should come in half an hour. That's when he left. I'm so sorry, Jerry. I had no idea what he was doing. I thought it was friendship, just friendship. We have to be honest with each other, and it wasn't easy for me to tell you this. So I stayed back and watched you. I wanted to be sure. Jerry, I'm sorry this happened. I should have known. I'll break up with him right away. I won't do anything to jeopardize what you and I are trying to build. Honestly, I'll miss his friendship, but his friendship isn't worth it if it's a scam. How can he destroy his marriage and his family? How can anyone do this to their children? Sandy, you know I love you and I won't hurt you again. Once was enough. I also don't want to tell you what to do. We move forward as equal partners, but perhaps you can rebuild your relationship. You may have to. What? And how to do this? First of all, you need to work together. This will be accompanied by a certain amount of tension for some time. It may not be possible to discuss everything at once. Denial, hurt feelings, his redoubled efforts, irritation. Retaliation is possible in the office. Never underestimate people's tendency to be passive-aggressive. It's a tough environment to work in. But with his approach, you may be able to put stop signs in front of him that he will be forced to heed. I remember working next to Diana for a month or 2 before leaving. I did a few things to keep the peace and make the situation at least somewhat bearable. Not ideal, but acceptable. With these words, I nodded for him to continue. A week later, Diana physically touched me again. It was her way of interacting with the world. I made it clear to her in a very calm, professional, non-aggressive manner, and in a way that others could hear, that I did not want to be touched. It wasn't rude, it wasn't mean. It was a direct and firm request. It was impossible to interpret it otherwise. It may seem like a small thing, but it marked boundaries, set boundaries for her. If you make it clear to him that touching is not welcome, you will change his green light to red. If he doesn't respect that, then maybe it's time to contact HR or his wife or both. Jerry, no more dinners with him unless it's with both of us and his wife. After work only with the group. The same goes for lunches. I paused, but this only applied to personal meetings after work. You're right, this can be a real problem at work. Causing a scandal or burning bridges should not be the first step. The company fails to deal with people when personnel problems arise, even if they do not interfere with work. They usually get fired quickly. We were both silent for a few minutes. Jerry, do I really trust people that much? Am I really that blind? Then he hugged me. And by the way, how did you become so smart? I leaned over and kissed him for the first time since he arrived. I have a diploma from the School of Life Challenges. I'd rather you didn't have to study there. He paused and looked at me with slight pain in his eyes. The reason I know all this is because it happened to me. That's exactly what happened. I didn't plan this, it happened. I took this last step. I chose to be unfaithful to you, but I was easily led to this path. This last step was small. Everything that came before made it so. At the beginning, and even in the middle of it all, I didn't think I was doing anything wrong or inappropriate. I never thought it was wrong. We were both silent for a minute. Jerry, I was still a little angry at you for your affair with Diana. I know you explained this to me several times, but I couldn't understand. Now I see. Tim's method was so sneaky and gradual. It could have happened to me too. I don't know if I would have taken that last step. After all, I saw what happened when you took that step. Without your experience, I don't know, Jerry. I just don't know. We spent the rest of the evening in the apartment, discussing everything important. The next day was Saturday, and Jerry had a flight at 15 o'clock on Sunday, so we decided to go out that evening. Some of my colleagues were going to Rontum's in the evening, and I decided to introduce them to Jerry. Jerry and I arrived there at 8 p.m. and met some of my colleagues on the outdoor terrace. It was a great place to see everyone. Warm air, open skies, meeting new people, and Jerry next to me. The work was still stressful, but we have a great team that tries to get along. High technology means high stress, especially when something breaks, which happens regularly. I saw Jill across the terrace, and she ran towards us. She is Bob's girlfriend. I met her several times. We communicated friendly. Jill, I'd like you to meet my boyfriend Jerry. Jerry extended his hand and Jill shook it. He's been spending a lot of time here with me lately. Jill asked, "What do you do? Hopefully not another it guy, Sandy. We already have too many it people in this company." We both laughed. Jerry simply smiled. I'm sure he wondered if he was the only one. I am an accountant and certified public accountant. I work for several firms and have been practicing accounting for about a year now. I specialize in audits. Ooh, that sounds. Jerry chimed in. Boring and dull. Jill replied, "No, not boring, more like detective and investigation. Did you catch anyone doing anything interesting?" Actually, yes. I had a hunch, but I needed the help of our DBA, who worked with me after office hours to get the proof. Jerry, I'll leave you and Jill to talk about work. She's at a law firm that specializes in financial matters. I'll go talk to Linda about work issues. You don't want to listen to our technical jargon, otherwise your eyes will not only roll back, but your head will do a complete turn, like in The Exorcist. With these words, I walked away. About 10 minutes later, I needed to go to the ladies' room, and Jerry waved to me as I walked by. "Jerry, I'll be back in a minute." I couldn't wait. I returned and immediately joined their conversation. "Sandy, I was telling Jill about that piece of Yukon gold jewelry I bought for you." Jerry had never given me anything made of Yukon gold, and I think my confusion showed on my face. "Oh, come on, we were at your brother's. Remember that beautiful Yukon piece?" He appeared unexpectedly, so to speak. Then I realized Yukon is our signal. Jerry asked me to save him from Jill. Oh yes, it was beautiful. A small gem, but very cute. I remember very well. Jerry sighed with relief. I noticed that Jill was a little over the top and was being a little too contact, either with me or with Jerry right in front of me. We stayed with her for another minute or two and then walked away. Jerry took my hand and whispered in my ear, "Thank you." A couple of minutes later, we met Bob and explained that he needed Jill, although she herself did not suspect it. He looked at me with confusion and then understood. Jill sometimes couldn't stop after 2 drinks. That night, back at my apartment, we discussed the evening and talked about us again. We came to mutual agreement on what each of us wanted from the future. We continued until 1:30 am. It was difficult but wonderful. In the end, we understood and agreed on what our future together should be. We became closer again, even stronger and more determined than before. We have developed a plan for the future. Jerry was going to get a job here, and we would live together again. For the first time, we made a decision with open eyes and open hearts. We did what was right for both of us. We sealed our decision with love and then slept until noon. On Monday, I ran into Tim while waiting for a meeting to start. We talked a standard warm-up before a meeting. As the others began to gather, Tim escorted me into the room, holding me lightly by the elbow. I shuddered. It was noticeable. In a calm voice, without anger, but loud enough for others to hear, I politely asked him not to touch me, saying that it would make me uncomfortable. He was a little surprised and tried to hide his reaction. Then we both joked, but I remained adamant. Hope this clears up the problem. The meeting passed without any incidents. By the end of the week, 3 more women had told Tim the same thing in the same manner. The company's employees are 60% women, most of them under 30 years old. Tim backed down and we maintained our friendship, but it became less close. His attempts to process me disappeared. Jerry was right, and I was very lucky. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even click to the next one.